don't know if he's going to address this in this video, but this kind of ties into a couple things I've been talking about. Actually, it ties into a lot of things I've been talking about. One of my biggest anti-capitalist takes, I mean, this isn't like capital socialist or whatever, but I don't think companies should be able to acquire other companies. Like, no horizontal mergers, no vertical mergers. Every company should just do its own thing, okay? If you want to make iPhones, that's fine, but you don't get to make microprocessors. You don't get to make screens. You don't get to make the software. You just make one thing and make it well, okay? And businesses shouldn't be made with the intent of just selling to a larger business, okay? That's cringe. We'd have to get into the weeds on that to discuss it more, but I noticed there's this like trend of everything to become everything. This was kind of spoken about, I think maybe me and Dan talked about it on Anything Else, where everything wants to be everything. It can't be an app. Oh, and we watched the video. It's like, there can't be an app to control your lights. It also needs a social media feed, and it needs you to log in, and it wants you to post, and it needs to be on your phone all the time. And every single app and every single game and everything just has to do everything now. And this it extends to people to some extent as well, to where if you're an influencer, okay, right? It's not enough. You can't just be like a video game streamer, or you can't just be a comedian. You also have to host a podcast. You also have to do finance, and you have to talk about politics. And it's like everything has grown to encompass everything. There's no like specialization or niche like things anymore. And now it's all about, it really is, it's all about like the influencer. I guess in a way I kind of joked about this in the past, where I would say that like if I were to become a musician, I would outsell like 99% of the world's musicians, not because I'm any good at music, but just because I have like a fan base and I could just sell them whatever slop I put out, you know? So like for Joe Rogan and comedy, or for Joe Rogan and politics, or for Joe Rogan anything. Yeah, I don't know. It's a very not good world, I think. Yeah. Isn't it more so celebrity worship than anything else? Yeah, but before, when you worship celebrities, you were worshiping them with the very limited stuff that they did, right? I guess if they did like a sponsor for shoes or cologne or perfume, maybe. But now you have unlimited access, because now if you have a celebrity that you like, well, look, Hawk Tuah is a really great example. 5 seconds of fame on a TikTok or a reel or whatever turns into a whole podcast, turns into a whole crypto scam scheme, turns into everyone else in the entire circuit is like talking about her, turns into CoffeeZilla videos. It's like, holy it can't just be one thing. It has to be everything. I'm surprised there wasn't a Talk to a social media app. Maybe there was.
Destiny has built his career arguing from center-left liberal position, often clashing with socialists and Marxists like Hasanabi over economic and political philosophy. Yet, in one of his more candid discussions, he revealed a set of views so deeply critical of capitalism's current structure that they would shock even those who label themselves anti-capitalist. These takes were not the familiar surface-level critiques often heard in mainstream spaces. They went deeper, touching on the way businesses operate, the nature of celebrity culture, and the evolution of the digital economy. What stood out most was how Destiny, a figure who has made a career out of defending liberal institutions and markets against radical critiques, expressed frustrations that resembled an outright rejection of many modern capitalist norms. The first and perhaps most radical belief Destiny revealed was his stance on mergers and acquisitions. In his view, no company should be allowed to absorb or acquire another. No horizontal mergers, no vertical integrations, no monopolistic expansion disguised as efficiency. Every company, in his imagined model, would be limited to doing one thing, and doing it well. If you build phones, then you build phones. You don't also produce the chips, manufacture the screens, and design the operating systems. You don't run an advertising platform on the side, or launch a streaming service because you can. The corporate sprawl, in Destiny's view, dilutes quality, crushes competition, and creates an ecosystem where a handful of conglomerates control every dimension of consumer life. It's an astonishingly anti-capitalist take when considering how much of today's economy is defined by this very principle of expansion. Companies don't simply compete in one market, they dominate across dozens, suffocating smaller players in the process. Destiny's idea would amount to an enforced fragmentation of corporate power, leaving businesses to specialize in one product or service rather than sprawling endlessly across industries. This critique extended beyond corporations into culture itself. Destiny observed how the modern economy has warped not only business structures, but also human identity. Just as corporations can no longer exist as specialized entities, individuals, particularly influencers, are no longer allowed to remain in their niche. A streamer cannot simply stream. A comedian cannot simply tell jokes. Each must operate as a miniature conglomerate, diversifying into podcasts, merchandise, politics, lifestyle branding, and financial schemes. The cultural expectation is expansion without limit, a mirror image of the corporate system that drives it. This observation cuts to the heart of how capitalism, particularly in its digital form, colonizes every aspect of life. Influence is no longer tethered to skill, but to the ability to sprawl across platforms, capture attention, and monetize through endless diversification. Destiny identified this as a profoundly negative development, one that has destroyed specialization and reduced cultural output to a lowest common denominator sludge. What makes this worse is the shift in celebrity worship. Destiny pointed out that historically, celebrity obsession was anchored to specific talents: an actor, a singer, an athlete. The public admired their work, and perhaps occasionally, their endorsements. Today, the digital age has created a celebrity culture where fame itself is the product. A person can achieve virality through a brief clip on TikTok, parlay that into a podcast, then launch merchandise, a cryptocurrency scheme, and a line of coffee, all with no foundational skill driving the fame. The system rewards ubiquity rather than excellence. Celebrity no longer represents mastery of craft, but the ability to convert attention into consumption across infinite verticals. The irony is that Destiny himself, as a streamer, recognizes that his own fanbase could sustain ventures far outside his expertise. He admitted that if he chose to make music, despite lacking talent, he could outsell the majority of working musicians simply by leveraging his existing platform. The critique is both external and self-aware, highlighting how the system incentivizes mediocrity as long as it can be packaged through fame. Underlying all of this is the capitalist urge for expansion. Destiny lamented that nothing is allowed to exist as a singular, focused product anymore. Apps meant to control lights must also incorporate social media feeds. Games must double as platforms for advertising and political discourse. Streaming services must produce content, sell merchandise, and integrate with everything from sports to shopping. The principle is clear. Nothing can simply be what it is. Everything must metastasize, absorbing functions outside its natural scope, until every product is an ecosystem demanding constant engagement. This is not merely inefficient, but corrosive to quality. It ensures that no product, service, or identity remains specialized because the drive for totalization overtakes all. What makes Destiny's stance remarkable is how radical it is compared to his usual positioning. He is not calling for incremental regulation or reforms to improve competition. He is describing an entirely different economic framework, one that would forcibly dismantle the mechanisms by which modern capitalism sustains itself. Prohibiting mergers and acquisitions would shatter the foundation of corporate strategy. Enforcing specialization would reorient how both businesses and individuals operate within the market. And rejecting the cultural economy of diversification would mean rethinking the very premise of influencer capitalism. These are not mild critiques. They amount to a reimagining of the system itself, one where limits are imposed on growth, expansion, and sprawl. The implications of such beliefs are enormous. If implemented, they would fracture conglomerates like Apple, Amazon, and Google into specialized entities, each focused on a single area. The cultural landscape of influencer capitalism would collapse, as audiences would no longer reward creators for simply being everything at once. The economy of attention would shift from ubiquity to depth, forcing both companies and individuals to succeed on the merit of their singular focus. But perhaps the most radical implication is the attack on capitalism's central ethos, the idea that growth is inherently good. Destiny's perspective challenges this assumption by suggesting that endless growth is not only unsustainable, but destructive. Stability, specialization, and boundaries, he argues, might produce a healthier culture than expansion without limit. The most striking irony in this revelation is how much closer these views align with the critiques of the very figures Destiny spends his career opposing. For someone who has long clashed with leftist critics of capitalism, these beliefs amount to a tacit acknowledgement that their core concerns are valid. The system does indeed produce monopolies, commodify identity, and suffocate specialization. Yet, Destiny's formulation is not grounded in Marxist theory or socialist ideology. It arises from pragmatic frustration with the absurdities of the system he observes daily, both in corporate structures and in the influencer economy he inhabits. His critique is uniquely his own, sharp, practical, and grounded in lived experience rather than theoretical frameworks. This rare moment demonstrates the strange convergences that can occur in modern political discourse.